In this show, we're answering all of your questions about the latest Apple announcements and what is going to happen going forward. So let's get right into your iCave answers. I'm iCave Dave and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you, and if you want the latest Apple leaks, news and rumours every weekday at 12 UTC, like this video, subscribe to the channel and ring my bell. And the first question comes from Alan B. Unboxings and News. iCave answers, are you going to get the new MacBook Pros? No, that's not the plan. Unfortunately, I was really hoping for one of the Mac Minis. It didn't arrive, so no, I'm not out for right now. I don't need a MacBook Pro. I don't go very far to do work. I don't do it out and about so much, so it doesn't make too much difference to me. But I'm very excited to see what these are like in the real world. Dragons in Genesis podcast asks, iCave answers, do you think that Apple will standardize their color options so that we can have iPhones and iPads that match the iMacs? I deserve an orange iPad mini. You do deserve an orange iPad mini, that's absolutely true. And I would love them to. I don't hold out much hope because they seem to just have a different team looking at colours for every different product line, and then they change the shades very slightly year on year, so it's very difficult to get stuff that matches from Apple, which is weird because IKEA can do it. Team Kinetix asks, iCave answers, before we get real world tests and benchmarks, how much of a difference do you think that the M1 Max will make over the M1 Pro in video render times? The Max seems overkill for anyone who isn't working with huge projects, but an extra £200 for a significantly faster 4K render time might be good value, double the media engine. Please convince me not to spend £3,000 on a laptop. Honestly, for the vast majority of people, yeah, you ain't gonna need the Max processor. However, if you are doing stuff for work, if you need to be able to get back to work quickly and get your next project rendering, yes, it will make a difference. But that's again only if you're doing projects that are going to demand that level of performance, that are going to be incredibly big. Otherwise, it's really not going to make that much difference in terms of render times, especially with the background rendering. If you have that in Final Cut switched on, then your export times are like phenomenally short. I keep them off because it saves disk space on my Mac. But yeah, if storage is not an option, then go for it. Turn on that background rendering and it will massively speed up your renders. Vincent Buchholz asks, do you think we will get a replacement for the entry-level MacBook Pro 13-inch M1 with MagSafe and without the touch bar, etc.? If so, when do you think we can expect that? So my thoughts are that the next replacement for that is going to actually be in the 14-inch chassis. I think they're going to retire the 13-inch chassis altogether. That 14-inch chassis will probably get the M2 inside it, so you will get the slightly bigger battery than you get in the MacBook Air. You'll get the better display probably. You'll probably get some other little perks. But we know that we're going to be getting M2 MacBook Airs with MagSafe, with mini LED displays and with the notch. So how much better is a Mac Pro version of that going to be? I don't know. James Apple, will a higher end Mac Mini come in the November event? And will they hint it in the Apple Quarterly Events call next week? One thing they won't do is hint anything in the earnings call. We know that much. I don't think there's going to be a November event. In the video earlier today, we talked about the potential for it coming later, before Christmas, which I would still love to happen. I'm not convinced though. I think it's probably going to be in March with the iMacs. Unfortunate, but I think most likely, unless it comes as a press release. Abdullah Nasir asks, iCave answers, is M1 Pro with 10-core CPU and 16-core GPU with the 16 gigs of memory enough for a video editor, or should I upgrade to M1 Max? Entirely depends. Just saying video editor is not super helpful if you're editing 10-bit 4K ProRes files. You will probably benefit from going up to the higher one. But even then, the smaller one is going to be absolutely enough for the vast majority of people. And in fairness, the M1 is enough for the vast majority of people. If you are going for super high-end video editing, yeah, by all means go up to it, but you will know if you need it if you are the kind of person that needs it. If you're not sure, and if you're asking me on a show like this, go for the M1 Pro. Sweeler Mac asks, can we have your initial reaction and final thoughts on Apple's £19 polishing cloth? I think it's a beautifully engineered product. It's one of Apple's great successes. I think it's going to revolutionise the cloth industry, and my thoughts and prayers go out to Cult Cloth, who have been making polishing cloths for quite some time and now been Sherlocked by Apple in a callous move. FB London asks, iCave answers, do you think we could get a Mac Mini in November along with something else unexpected? Now, we talked about this in the show earlier today. I think if we are going to get the Mac Mini with the Pro processors inside it, I think that is going to come as part of a press release rather than another event. I don't think we're going to get a November event this year. I would love to be proven wrong, and I would love to have Apple show us some stuff that we weren't expecting, but I don't think there's much left. Lars Anderson asks, iCave answers, what exactly did Apple mean when they talked about an improved mini jack output? More power, updated standard of optical output, support for balanced Pentacon mini jack. I'm going to be honest, I don't know what some of those things at the end mean, but it's a higher impedance, I believe, which means that it supports higher end headphones. So basically audiophile level headphones, I think it basically supports those, the ones that need a bit more power. Yes. Josh, iCave answers, in the Apple Mac event that we just had, why didn't we see an M2 MacBook Air, only MacBook Pros? Because we didn't see M2 at all, because M2 isn't coming until next year. The M2 MacBook Air probably, according to Guoming Chi, is coming in the third quarter of next year. I would hope that we will see it actually in March, because it is using the A15 generation processors, but I guess part of this comes down to capacity at the fabs at this point. Martin Cooper, iCave answers, before buying the new M1 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro, from the vast array of options, which is more important, more GPU cores or more unified memory? Very difficult to say, and also will depend on your specific use case. I would say if you are going to be graphics focused, go for the GPU cores, although the unified memory, having up to 64 gigabytes of that, would give you more memory available to the GPU as well. That's the joy of unified memory, is it's all available for the whole system. So it depends. I think for gaming, if you want to do like ray tracing and that kind of thing, I think you probably want to go for the GPU cores. For general day-to-day use, the unified memory. But also remember that Apple is very, very good at managing memory, so you're probably not going to run out with 32 gigs either. Benjamin Patch, iCave answers, like you, I'm generally more excited about desktops than laptops. While these new MacBook Pros look fantastic, I would have bought a Mac Mini with M1 Max if it was announced. Why do you think we didn't get one, as the rumours suggested? Now, I've gone over this in a bit more detail in the main show, but if you watch the event, you'll see that the logic boards for these MacBook Pros are enormous. They cover the entirety of the MacBook chassis. When we look at the M1 releases that we had last year, the chip was like a little strip along the back of the MacBook Air, and then the rest of it was battery. So there is a huge amount more that's going into these in terms of the Thunderbolt controllers and all of the other stuff that goes around the chip. All the rest of the logic board is a lot more complex. So I'm guessing that's the reason, is they're having to re-engineer that into multiple boards that will stack in order to do it in a Mac Mini and then still get the cooling to work. So it's probably more of an engineering task than we expected. NewQuest asks, iCave answers, I'm surprised that no one has talked about Apple's investment into Blender before the keynote. This seems huge considering Apple used to feature the Unreal Engine in keynotes before Epic screwed themselves. I'm thinking Apple's going to put its weight behind Blender now. What do you think? When you say nobody's talking about it, we did do like a whole video that was titled about Blender and Apple kind of joining forces, so people have talked about it, just not many of them. But yeah, I think that Blender is being backed up because Apple wants creative pros to use their Macs, and having Apple as an investor in Blender makes sure that the technology inside it is up to date and as, you know, current as possible to make their machines absolutely sing. James Apple asks, will they bring out an M1 Pro Max chip in the larger iMac? And what are your thoughts on Ross Young saying that they have the same footprint as the 27-inch iMacs we have today? So when you say a Pro Max chip, I don't think there is going to be a Pro Max chip. I think there's going to be the Pro and the Max, and they're the ones that are going to go into the iMac, because Apple is very much moving away from form factor specific chips. Form factor specific silicon. The only one that is probably going to get anything different is probably the Mac Pro. Having seen the size of the boards in the MacBook Pros, I don't think you could fit two SoCs into an iMac now, in terms of thermals and in terms of the physical footprint of these boards. Brian Data asks, iCave answers, seeing leaked Geekbench results with a multi-core score for M1 Max of 11,542. I was expecting something closer to 14,000. Your thoughts? So I think since you posted this, there's actually been a lot more, and the scores are more in the 12,600 kind of range. They're about 1,000 points higher than you'd seen there, which is a good improvement. I think 14,000 is still probably what they were aiming for, but 14,000 would also have been basically double what we had in the M1. And yes, we've got double the performance cores, but we've got less efficiency cores, and obviously there's going to be more thermal constraints, so it's probably not going to ramp quite as high. I think that's probably where the difference is happening there. But I think we will see the scores creep closer to that. I think we'll definitely get over 13,000 with software updates as they come out. Rob asks, iCave answer, I wouldn't mind a MacBook Pro MagSafe style connector to come to the iPhone instead of the Lightning connector we have now, or a possible USB-C future. Unlikely it would happen, but what do you think? MagSafe or USB-C for Lightning? I think Apple's plan is to go to puck MagSafe. I don't think they want to have physical connectors on the outside of the iPhone, and I think that's absolutely fine. There's no real need to have them these days. The only thing is for data transfer, and to be fair, AirDrop is substantially faster than plugging in a lightning cable right now. That seems to be the way that they're going. I could see them having a smart connector style connection on the back where you could magnetically attach something like a MagSafe cable. But I also don't see what the advantage of that is over the wireless MagSafe, to be completely honest. And that's it for this show, guys. Don't forget, leave your questions down in the comments section, and I would love to answer them in a future video. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.